Welcome to English Through History. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe or leave us a review. It helps us to create more content and is appreciated by our small team here. The oldest and the strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft, born Howard Philip Lovecraft on August 20, 1890, in Providence, Rhode Island, was an American writer best known for his contributions to the genre of weird fiction and horror. Lovecraft's work is characterized by his creation of a rich mythos known as the Cthulhu mythos, which has influenced a vast array of writers and artists. In today's episode, we will be talking about this remarkable writer, his life, his legacy as the father of the modern horror genre. Lovecraft was the only child of Winfield Scott Lovecraft, a traveling salesman, and Sarah Susan Phillips Lovecraft, who was of a wealthy and well-established family. His father suffered a psychotic episode when Lovecraft was just 3 years old and was institutionalized, remaining in a mental hospital until his death in 1898. Lovecraft's mother also struggled with mental health issues, which had a profound impact on Lovecraft's upbringing. Lovecraft was a precocious child, displaying an early passion for literature and science, particularly chemistry and astronomy. Despite his intellectual abilities, he faced health problems and severe anxiety, which led to irregular schooling and ultimately a failure to graduate from high school. Inspired by Gothic writer Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft began his career as a writer with amateur journalism and poetry. In 1913, he wrote a critical letter to a pulp magazine, which led to his involvement in the world of amateur journalism. His first published short story, The Alchemist, appeared in 1916. He became more prolific in the 1920s, creating many of his most famous stories, including The Call of Cthulhu in 1928 and At the Mountains of Madness in 1936. His work often explored themes of cosmic horror, the insignificance of humanity in the grand scheme of the universe, and the fragility of sanity. Lovecraft's protagonists frequently encounter forbidden knowledge and face incomprehensible entities and eldritch horrors. Lovecraft married Sonia Green, a fellow amateur journalist, in 1924. The marriage unfortunately was short-lived, partly due to financial difficulties and Lovecraft's reluctance to leave Providence for New York City. They separated amicably in 1926, and Lovecraft returned to Providence, where he lived until his death. Despite a prolific output, Lovecraft struggled financially throughout his life. He revised and ghostwrote stories for other writers to make ends meet. Lovecraft's work gained little commercial success during his lifetime, but he continued to write prolifically until his death. Lovecraft died of intestinal cancer on March 15, 1937, in Providence, and in poverty and relative obscurity. His influence and fame grew posthumously, largely due to the efforts of friends and admirers who persevered and promoted his work. H.P. Lovecraft's work has had a lasting impact on horror fiction and popular culture. His creation of Cthulhu mythos has inspired countless writers, filmmakers, and game designers. Lovecraft's stories are now considered classics of horror literature, and his themes of cosmic dread and the limits of human understanding continue to resonate with readers around the world. Despite his influence, Lovecraft's legacy is complicated by his well-documented racist views, which have sparked significant discussion and criticism. His work is studied both for its literary merits and as a reflection of the social and cultural attitudes of the time. One of the most significant and enduring controversies surrounding Lovecraft is his racist and xenophobic beliefs. His letters and some of his works contain explicit and virulent racism, which has caused considerable debate and criticism. These views were not uncommon in his time, but Lovecraft's expressions of them were notably intense and overt. This aspect of his character has led to discussions on how to appreciate his contribution to literature while acknowledging and critiquing his prejudices. Lovecraft's view on women have also been scrutinized. Although his interactions with women, including his marriage to Sonia Green, did not reveal overt misogyny, his lack of female characters and an often negative portrayal of women in his stories suggests an underlying bias. Lovecraft's worldview, influenced by his reclusive and conservative nature, seemed to favor traditional gender roles, which has been criticized in modern evaluations of his work. Lovecraft's struggle with mental health, including severe anxiety and possible depression, impacted his life and work. His reclusive nature, fear of social interaction, and difficulty maintaining employment contributed to a perception of him as an eccentric and isolated figure. These aspects of his personality have been both romanticized and criticized, leading to debates about how his personal challenges influenced his writing. The posthumous treatment of Lovecraft's legacy has sparked considerable debate. While his contributions to the horror genre and his creation of the Cthulhu mythos are widely celebrated, there is ongoing discussion as to how to address the problematic aspects of his work. Some argue for a contextual reading of his work that acknowledges his prejudices while appreciating his literary innovations. Others call for a more critical approach that does not shy away from condemning his racist beliefs. H.P. Lovecraft has had a profound and far-reaching influence on a wide array of authors across various genres, particularly in horror, science fiction, and fantasy. Stephen King is one of the most famous contemporary authors influenced by Lovecraft. King's work often explores themes of cosmic horror and the supernatural, and he has frequently cited Lovecraft as a major inspiration. His novel It and the story Jerusalem's Lot show clear Lovecraftian elements. Clive Barker, a prominent horror and fantasy author, has also been influenced by Lovecraft. Barker's exploration of otherworldly dimensions and grotesque creatures in works like The Hellbound Heart, which is the basis for the Hellraiser series, reflects Lovecraft's impact. It isn't just writers, though. Guillermo del Toro is heavily influenced by Lovecraft as well. Del Toro's films, such as Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, often feature Lovecraftian themes of ancient, otherworldly beings and the intersection of myth and reality. He has long expressed a desire to adapt Lovecraft's At the Mountain of Madness into a film. Finally, to conclude, let's have a look at some of the myths that have surfaced around this reclusive and mysterious man. The first is, in fact, regarding his hermit-like existence. While Lovecraft was introverted and led a relatively isolated life, he wasn't a total hermit. He traveled to various places, including New York City, Charleston, Quebec, and Florida. He also had an extensive correspondence network, writing thousands of letters to fans, friends, fellow writers, which provided him with significant social interaction. While Lovecraft is best known for his horror fiction, he also wrote science fiction, fantasy, poetry, essays, and literary criticism. His stories often blend elements of different genres, incorporating scientific and fantastical elements into his horror narratives. He wasn't a one-genre kind of writer. More importantly, Lovecraft was a staunch materialist and atheist. He did not believe in the supernatural or any form of the occult. His writings were purely fictional explorations of these themes, reflecting his interest in the unknown and the limitations of human understanding, rather than any personal belief in their reality. His inspirations from his work came from writers like Mary Shelley and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Also, his interest in history and astronomy meant he had a wealth of inspiration. The period he was alive was somewhat of a technical revolution and social upheaval. He no doubt felt the anxieties that come from this. This is reflected in his works. He kept a dream journal so he could better include them in his works, which contribute to the surreal and unsettling atmosphere. And finally, while he did indeed create the Cthulhu mythos, he wasn't alone. It was expanded and developed by other writers, both during his life and after his death. Friends and contemporaries like August Derleth, Robert E. Howard, and Clark Ashton Smith contributed significantly to the mythos, and it has continued to grow through the work of countless other authors.